Okay, Mila Falcha, welcome back. Continuing our Saturday book. This is part 4 of The Afterlife Revolution by Whitley and Anne Strieber. And probably be a little bit of a shorter video, and maybe we'll do some cards. What do you know? Okay, so we're partway through a chapter, but it seemed to go on rather long. And I don't know, I just decided to take a break. I don't know. So we're actually on chapter, it's a long chapter, 10, Know Thyself. And we were in the middle of a conversation, and I just cut myself short. I don't know. Of the pyramids and the writings on the pyramids. And on the pyramid wall, the soul is a serpent of light, living on a person's spine. Is how they depict it. And this is what's called Kundalini energy. And it's nerve impulses that are integral to being alive. 2,000 years later, in Genesis, the soul is now seen as the external source of the self, knowledge. And it recognizes the separation of the body and the soul. So that's how it kind of evolved in understanding. Self-knowledge is self-will and surrender. It was later debased. The soul was considered an evil being with the snake and the devil and, whispering bad things. Self-knowledge was considered bad because the serpent was whispering in your ear to turn you away from God. Don't pay attention to, don't look behind the curtain. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Pay attention to the great Oz. Pay attention to what you're being told to believe. But that wasn't true. We are our own demons, is the message. So in the pyramid, the serpent is light and the core of life force. In other ancient pagan belief systems, serpent is about goddess energy, goddess symbol. It's circled by 7 smaller circles, the chakras or the tantras, and this began an age-old search for the light. So what this is talking about, if I understand correctly, is there was older knowledge and they understood what they were doing. They were depicting life force as a serpent of light around the spine. And belief systems went in 2 directions. There were the people who continued to understand that and thought in terms of chakras and tantras, and then there were us. So we're always searching in darkness and wandering to gradually find the light is the message. Chakra are the colors of ascension of light from density to evanescence. So what's that saying? Light is the color it is because of the speed with which its molecules move, atoms move. The higher the vibration, the more the color changes. And the chakras change color as they elevate. It's sort of metaphorical, but it's also real too. And the more dense, the deeper the color to attachment to the gravity in the material world. And as they move faster and they spread farther apart, the colors change and the light changes as it evanesces, as it glows and grows more diffuse. Dawn is red, morning is orange, day is yellow, the earth is green, the sky is blue, the higher sky is indigo, and the Milky Way is violet. Those are the colors of the chakras. There is both a search and a conscious energy that is found where we're going. Half of this stuff I don't understand, so I'm just something to think about. The serpent in the spine is considered the road to ascension. It's the passage of the soul in death. This is what the Egyptians were trying to depict. So then he says, what does death feel like? And so he talked to Anne about this. A shock down the spine, an unlocking of the energy. You are loosened, you're loose. And she said that she felt shot out of the front of her body. She immediately reconnected with everyone she'd ever been and everything she'd ever known. Well, that's a trip and a half. So she also said, we are full of life and full of light, and joy and love is all around you. That's what you feel. But she told him that she still felt like herself. She still felt physical. She says, you don't go to the light. You are the light. 24. Okay, so there's this guy Nestorius of Nonhadra, whoever, in the 8th century describes this paradox very well. You are the light, of being in light and being light at the same time. He said, you must give your attention to the simple light within you. In this simple light, moreover, a star will occasionally appear and shine, but later will hide itself and disappear. This is the mystery of the new world. He then describes an ascent in light that reads to me very like the ascent through the chakras first described in the pyramid text. The light is the color of the sky, which is also the color of the nature of the purified soul. That color is the color of the firmament in which the intellectual insights of spiritual contemplation are situated like the stars. Fancy bookmark here. I'm losing track of it. So the universe is full of purified souls. So this is a metaphor and a reality. That dense earthly light, red, and then orange is the morning, yellow the daytime, green the earth, blue is, what was blue? The sky, but it was also something else. Understanding, awareness, doesn't really say. Of course it doesn't. Well, the sky. Indigo is a little bit outer space, and then violet is the universe, the cosmos. The soul projects rays of fire. In Egypt, the snake and life are the same word in Egyptian. His first encounter with ETs was earlier than he thought. He thought it was all these experiences that he described in the book Communion, traumatic experiences that happened to him as cabin in the woods. But under hypnosis, he remembered and explained why he'd been on alert and secretly conscious for months. He had felt uncomfortable, just the sense of unease. And under hypnosis, he realized, I knew they were coming. He felt a presence that helped ease the pain of his childhood injury. We're talking emotional, psychological injury. He felt close to ETs. He felt close to that drawing of the alien, the gray on the book cover. This ET told him to read Robert Monroe's Journeys Out of the Body. And it explains how to make that journey. And it worked. He began to wonder where his visitors' souls who took on physical form, he began to wonder about the nature of these ETs, the nature of his own soul, the souls of the people around him. It all became something very imminent and real to him. After his wife died, he wanted to go with her. He went to a conference on extreme human experience, and after meditating, he had an out-of-body experience. And Anne told him during that experience that the first thing you realize when you leave life is that all of our beliefs are immature, that we don't know enough to have beliefs. You know, my friend Tim and I have been going through this book, Spiritism, and there's an overlap here. And in the book Spiritism, it talks about that. It says, we can only answer our own questions so far because our ability to comprehend is so undeveloped. Our brains are undeveloped. Our consciousness is underdeveloped, and we are immature. And it's our job to strive, because it will change. We will evolve and transcend. If we don't try, we won't. We have to try. But it can feel very frustrating because it doesn't happen immediately. It takes effort. So where am I? Okay. So we had this out-of-body thing, and she said, we're immature. So he had this experience, and he's always working on this, so he has these great experiences. He says, I was sleeping at around 4 a.m. when I remember seeing you, Anne, standing in the open area between the foot of the bed and the wall. Is this Anne he's talking to? Oh, no, this is a guy who was at a conference with him. Okay, so he's meditating, and he's trying to contact people in his meditation. He's at a conference in a hotel room or some kind of a conference thing with lots of bedrooms. And he's trying to contact people. And he couldn't get this guy to wake up. He didn't have enough energy to wake the guy up. And so he went on through a wall to the next room. And he finally got to the third room. And the guy in that room was already half awake. So he hung around until the guy noticed him and looked alarmed. He said, I was the guy that looked alarmed, the guy that saw Whitley Strieber in spirit form wandering around in a meditation, or an out-of-body experience. The guy later said, I was sleeping at around 4 a.m. when I remember seeing you standing in the open area between the foot of my bed and the wall, arms beside you, calmly looking at me as we talked telepathically for some time. I don't remember the topic, but whatever it was, it kept me awake and was profound because I could not get back to sleep for an hour or two. You had on a 1-inch colored checked shirt, and you looked, like 1-inch checks, colored shirt. And you looked calm and happy, but you weren't smiling. I guess I sensed you were calm and happy. You seemed to love me in some way because I felt comforted and calm when I went back to sleep. It seemed like a 20-minute talk, and then you left through the ceiling. That's great. So as the time passed, he said, in the non-physical world, the souls lose touch with the physical as things change in the physical with time. So our perception of time passing and the world changing with that time passing, I guess the souls can't relate anymore. He was not in control, he said, of this out-of-body experience. It was wild. He visited a dorm on a university campus, and he knew he was in a dorm on a university campus, but he didn't know who or where or what. He just, boom, there he was. The next day, 2 conference attendees recognized his description. They were professors, and in later years, he visited the university and he saw objects that validated his experience. And he realized, okay, I've been here before, but it was during that out-of-body experience. Never been there before the out-of-body experience. And he recognized, I think, if I remember correctly, somebody had a surfboard or a guitar, something leaning against a wall, and he was able to describe it. And they were like, oh, whoa. Anyway, he said, all is light. So chapter 12, the most powerful soul tool. He says, we see ourselves as solid, but if we can focus on the atoms and the electrons and protons, we can visualize the light that we are, the fields of energy, memory, data. We're swirls of information suffused with light. We are light. That is what our soul is. And these ETs told experiencers that they're soul technicians, that they reflect the inner light. That's their job. Okay, here's a story. Alfred Russel Wallace, who along with Charles Darwin discovered the principle of natural selection, said man is a duality consisting of an organized spiritual form, evolved coincidentally and permeating the physical body and having corresponding organs and development. Death is separation of this duality, and it affects no change in the spirit, morally or intellectually. Your soul is who your soul is. Progressive evolution of the intellectual and moral nature is the density of individuals, the knowledge, attainments, and experience of earth life forming the basis of spirit life. Because he was a proponent of spiritualism, it's our book, Spiritism, Wallace was a controversial figure in the 19th century scientific circles, exactly as he would be now. He was also, however, one of the great naturalists of his age, and also one of the first advocates of the need to preserve the environment. So his description of the duality of body and soul fits very well, both with his Whitley Strieber's out-of-body experiences and Anne's near-death experience, and many descriptions of her entry into the afterlife. In fact, she described her experience of leaving her body in terms that mirror Wallace's concept quite exactly. She said, when I called you from my deathbed, it was because I was sort of falling out of my body. When you came rushing in, I was so glad. I thought, oh, he can hear. And I knew that we would stay together. When you put your hand on my heart and started saying goodbye, I just let go. I felt my heart stop. It didn't hurt. And there was an unclasping along my spine. I popped out. I went right through your hand and into the air above the bed. I looked down at you with your head bowed and crying and saying goodbye. But why? I was right there with you. That was when I realized there was an afterlife and I was in it. And boy, that was exciting. I was me. I had on the clothes you saw me in. They were just there, part of the way I was imagining myself, comfortable clothes. I felt like me, like my body, but not sick and not paralyzed and miserable. Normal. I felt normal. Okay. So he will actually travel out of body in meditation. And he said some people can't see him. In this state, he doesn't feel like a body. He feels like a ball of, he feels like a ball with 360-degree vision. There's a word for that. But you can see in every direction at the same time. It's hard to imagine. In life, he said, light and the physical body, the soul and the physical body intermingle. At death, the body looks empty to those who know what they're looking for. And at death transformed, he said, he saw something leave her and left behind a smaller physical presence than normally she did. So at death, it's kind of, she shrank. Anne told him that was because she was already more light, even in life. She was more light than physical. Tibetan Buddhists talk about a rainbow body, and this is the body of masters. They leave signs. The first sign is a shining body because they have so much light already, like Anne. This is what they look like at death, I guess. The second sign is a fine mist forms after death, and there have been people who photographed that. The third sign is rainbows in the mist, and later, even at a funeral. So she told him that after death, she tried to talk to people and no one saw her. Therefore, she did a flash of light and an explosion at the McGregor house. Friends who saw and heard that. She was very frustrated because they weren't noticing that it was her. We must accept that what we can't see does exist. Our ego is holding us back. The soul tool is giving one's light to others. This is an important tool that we have to evolve our souls, is to give one's light to others. Open your heart and be completely compassionate. Be without ego. Ego makes you judge. Judging is not compassion. This is a message for me directly. This has my name on it. That judging is, judge not lest you be judged. It's kind of a lower vibratory impulse, and so tempting. But ETs seek out this compassion. They look for that in people. In Buddhism, you can find the energy of deities with imagination. Imagine their presence. In other words, if you use imagination, you can connect to the energy of deities. Disciplined imagination is integral to inner seeing. It's not just the imagination. Imagination can bring empowerment. I think the best example that comes to my mind is all of the famous people who invented or created, artists, writers, scientists. They all said the same thing. My best work was not when I was doing an experiment or sitting at a typewriter. My best work was when I was daydreaming, or I was asleep, or I was meditating. Anne said, I made a conscious choice to give up anger even when I was persecuted, annoyed. Death is a second, and all the suffering is forgotten. It happens in a second, and then all suffering is forgotten. Souls that are too heavy to rise, fall. So souls have weight, the energy of the vibration. To offset that, to prevent that, to let your soul rise is done by giving yourself to others. Compassion sees only the need. It forgets the judgment, which takes you out of ego and into soul. Why do some have negative near-death experiences? There's a purpose to it. It's to learn lessons, to stay on the right path. It's a warning. It's enlightenment about ego. Chapter 13, the soul as a second body. So he talks about the Shroud of Turin. I joke about being in Turin and not being willing to pay the $20 to go look at the shroud. I could see a picture and I could use the $20 to buy coffee. I'm very evolved. So he talks about the Shroud of Turin, that souls can affect the physical world. He talks about being seen while being out of body. He cites a friend, a physicist, who was present at a transcendent moment with a group, but did not see it. But he did suffer debilitating headaches after. What he's saying is, you can have a group of people and some will experience a phenomenon and others won't. And it depends on their state of vibration. It's about denial and reality. The experience that was happening to everybody else challenged his beliefs, and he was just too much in denial. Strieber talks about the Shroud of Turin, and carbon dating being influenced by the belief of scientists going in. And they later found that the cloth that it was on was repaired millennia later. I don't know what that means. There was DNA on it. The type of weave was from somebody very rich, like, I don't know, Joseph of Arimathea, who apparently was Mary's uncle and was a wealthy tin merchant. There was writing on it and blood on it, and they studied that, and it was from somebody that was tortured. Apparently, there are chemicals in the blood that you can tell if somebody's been under stress and death. Some say that UV light would have made it do that, but it wasn't dye, like would have made that impression. But it wasn't dye and it wasn't paint. It was some sort of energy release that made the image. And it wasn't possible for humans to do that in those days. So it would require extreme, brief, intense flashing of light. He believes it was made by a light body, and that all Gospels talk about light beings at Jesus's tomb. Interesting. Anne says the resurrected Jesus is a Christian version of the old green man of pagan fertility. That he's a new form of pagan fertility god. And the Shroud of Turin was Jesus, him, showing us that soul life is real, leaving that impression with a burst of soul energy light, was to leave the message that this is a real thing. Oh, maybe I should have spent that $20. It doesn't matter. I don't need to see it to understand what they're talking about here. Chapter 14, a hidden plan. The Earth is in a perfect place to protect the planet and us. And where it is, like, how do I explain this? Like, its relationship to the sun, its relationship to the rest of the universe, it's in the perfect spot for the environment to provide us with life and for us to be okay, to have the right amount of oxygen, not too much UV light from the sun, you know, all the things that could easily disrupt the balance. Where we are in relationship to the other heavenly bodies is the perfect place for us. Was this random? Was it because of some intelligent, I can't say it. I just can't bring myself to say it. He said it was a strangely high level of good luck. Random. Are we being shaped and formed, or is the universe a living being? Does it have motives and expectations and dreams? He says, for example, our Earth cultures have had repeated cycles of evolution and destruction. That's inarguable. And there have been instances of intervention in the cycles and have repeatedly upended our cultures. And he's calling these cycles of light. Moses talked about the burning bush, and this was a new concept of God, one with no form. This wasn't a statue of a person. It was not an anthropomorphic image of God. It was a burning, a light, a heat. It was immortal. And Jesus was announced by a light, was surrounded in light, and absorbed into light. This light has power. His followers braved the hostility of others to talk with him. For example, Paul, let's call him by his name, Saul. Saul was on his way to Damascus to persecute somebody. And there was a flash of light in the sky that blinded him temporarily and put a sign in the sky. What was that? Muhammad was visited by an angel of light in a cave. He mentions violence, guilt, materialism, that these beliefs are, these things, these situations are descended into. We have yet been able to handle all of this with light. We've taken that energy and turned it negative. Why do these moments happen? Science and religion speculate, and neither has an answer. But there does seem to be an intention to these cycles that are repeated over and over. It seems to protect and then upend everything with violence. Or is the destruction random? And is that how the planet recovers? Is that what is actually designed? Is how the planet is designed? Or as some people would say, Gaia repairs itself periodically. The Earth's past, he said, many geological eras in the Earth's past, at least 5 major extinction events that destroyed the majority of species. Was this chance? Was this chance and design? Anne doesn't know. Even though she's dead and he asked her, she didn't know. She said people didn't exist at the beginning. We're just a really great idea that was created. He remembered this quote. The universe began on a single primordial quest for knowledge. You die only with the knowledge that you bring with you. When Earth is forming, it was hit by something. And this created the Pacific, for example. The remnants created the moon. Without the moon in close orbit, there'd be no higher form of life on Earth because of the interaction of the Earth and the moon. It protects us from strikes from other heavenly bodies. Its gravity affects the winds and the tides, the winds that would scour the surface. So a collision that created the moon was a fundamental shock upon which everything depends. That's kind of a mind blower. Was it an accident? When you add it all to the other things that life and evolution have depended on, the location of the moon near the Earth, the placement of the outer planets in just the right position to absorb the impacts of incoming debris, the fact that the sun, unlike most yellow dwarf stars, is strikingly free of the huge solar explosions that regularly sterilize their planets with radiation. You have to wonder if you're not looking at a gigantic design. Not only that, we do not see the gamma ray bursts coming from the center of our galaxy that are present in most of them and which render them permanently sterile. Planets he's talking about. So a benign star in a benign galaxy, a planet the perfect distance from its star, and a moon in exquisite orbital balance with it are what have enabled life to arise and evolve here on the Earth. It's a perfect setup. Accident? Random? Also, random periodic pressures force life to adapt or die. This happens in individual lives too, our physical lives and our soul lives. Evolution of the soul results in the individual, and then in the species, and then in all life. It's holographic. Can we look for large-scale pictures and glimpse the motives? From one cell, we get us. Like a grain of sand, we get the universe. 99% of all species ever created are extinct. The Earth is not really a safe place. There have been 5 great mass extinctions that we know of. The third was 248 million years ago in the Permian mass extinction. It killed 96% of the life on the planet. This is cheery, you know. Number 5 was in the Cretaceous period, and it killed the dinosaurs. Now we're in number 6. It began in the Ice Age 2.8 million years ago, and it's a quaternary glaciation ice ages that go up and down every 100,000 years or so, with interglacial periods in between. So it's a cycle of freezing, melting, freezing, melting. We're now at the end of the cycle, end of the interglacial cycle, the time between. So in larger geological perspectives of time, it's but a brief moment. So there's a steady process of minor extinctions that are going on all the time. For example, 15,000 years ago, some mammals and other species went extinct. Of course, we don't help them. Because of their habitats being in flux and humans in constant action, like things that we do, and then continuously erupting volcanoes, they affect the environment too. The Earth has epochs, long periods of stability with very slow change. Violent mass extinction is rare. These cycles of change have forced humanity, and especially our consciousness, to evolve. This is paradigm shift, is what he's saying. Even in these events, some survive and move ahead and evolve to adapt. 2012, Nature Geoscience by Chen and Benton. I'm thinking this must be a book. I don't remember. It was a study presented in like a periodical. Life is not only recovered, but entirely new species burst forth in the millions. It was as if, according to a statement by one of these writers on their website, the event had reset evolution. I think we're supposed to take a hint. Then there was a thing called the KT event, which destroyed the dinosaurs. And after that, the mammals became more advanced and more dominant. This began the Cenozoic age, and we're now in the Quaternary, which is full of upheavals. The extinction event now started 13,000 years ago with a comet strike. It killed off almost all of the humans in North America. Survivors filled niches left by extinct predators. We developed much more organized societies. For example, Göbekli Tepe. Because we had more room, we became dominant. We are the most self-aware. And I editorialized here in parentheses, are we? We see the planet heating up, and there will be a sudden cooling and a new ice age. And Anne told him, soon. Of course, soon is relative in geological terms. Humans act upon the environment like ever erupting volcanoes. We're adding our damage to the natural cycles, so we've sped it all up. The end of the interglacial is inevitable. We can't plan for it. We can't try to reduce our effect on it. This is happening. This is one of those cycles. We speed it up. And because of fear, of the loss of profit, of the helplessness in the face of the threat, we're paralyzed into inactivity. And this has actually influenced our evolution. When this recent glaciation began, we were naked primitive hunter-gatherers. So I guess what he's saying is not much has changed. We evolved to use clothing and weapons and hunting and communication. 400,000 years ago, a supernova irradiated us, and there were many mutations. Before that happened, I don't know if this is a theory or if they've proven this. I don't know, but this is what he's talking about. And I'm not espousing any kind of scientific misinformation. I'm simply telling you, YouTube, what he writes in the book. That before this irradiation from a supernova, only O blood existed. And after, there was A, B, and AB. There was an increase of comprehension and language areas in the brain, and less activity in the gene for jaw protrusion. So speech became possible, and therefore communication in a complex society. Then, 13,000 years ago, space debris brought the ice age to an end, with burning and flooding and black mat. I don't know if I abbreviated something or if it's actually black mat. Let's see what it says. It's called the black mat. It's been a while since I read this. It's now found at various depths beneath the surface of the soil over much of the United States. This mat consists of ash and other debris combined with fossils of algae. What happened was that the melting ice sheet caused a continental flood that put out all the fires. The shallow floodwaters gradually drained away, leaving the debris that was floating on its surface lying on the ground. This dried and hardened into the mat. And eventually, what came from this was history, culture, complexity. And today, we're trying to extend into the non-physical. That's kind of the next evolutionary step, is what they're saying. Looking to bridge life and death is this philosophical goal. But our civilization cannot be sustained by the earth. The demands for resources, we're inflexible, we're also vulnerable. And he wrote about the superstorm in The Day After Tomorrow. This was the book that he wrote, and I think they made a movie out of it. He said it was overly dramatic, but at the time when he wrote it. But he says now it's become mainstream science, and that we're likely to experience a population decrease within the century, scientists are saying. And as individual souls are reborn, so are species souls reborn. This is throwing a lot of concepts one right after the other. Kind of how this book is. Life is an organ of soul. Living bodies are sensing devices inserted into the river of time, both individuals and whole species. What you think of as yourself is actually a mechanism being controlled by your non-physical self, which is using it to gain new knowledge. Remember that being is both individual and general. You attend to your own life cycle, but by doing so, you also attend to the life cycles of the species, the planet, and all the way up to the universe. Chapter 15, The White Moth. In the spring of 2016, he began to get proof of Anne's existence as a conscious presence. In April, he was at a conference in Arkansas called A New World, If We Can Take It. And he felt Anne's presence there very strongly. He was already communicating with her, but he wasn't sure that she was a separate non-physical entity, or was it part of her soul? He didn't know what to make of it. He felt like he was communicating, but what? Suddenly he got a phone notice that somebody was in his house in Los Angeles, like one of those security things. And he had a video of what was going on in his house, and he looked at it and saw a large white moth. He'd been gone for 2 weeks and nobody had been in the house. It had been completely shut up. How had this moth gotten in? And for 24 hours, it showed up when it was dark at night. It showed, he showed the video to a psychic. And the psychic said, this is no ordinary moth. So he went home and he searched. No moth. It wasn't dead on the windowsill. He didn't have a pet cat that ate the body. There was no fluttering at a window. Next year, he was giving a speech. He mentioned Anne. His phone lit up. There was a moth again at the camera in the video. This is the only time that this happened. He came home and he searched. No moth. He realized in that year that the only time he saw a moth was when he talked about her out loud in public. She'd loved his story, The White Moth. He had written a story called The White Moth, which was a meditation on dying. And she had loved that story. Finally, he began to hear her telepathically in his head. And he had a conversation in his head with her about metaphysics. And she had had a remarkable relationship with their son. And he was visiting their son in 2017. And he told his son about the moth and what Anne had said. And when he said it, the white moth triggered the phone alert again back at his house where he wasn't. And he never saw it again. He had a very wide lens and he looked all over. He couldn't see it. Anne has told him that she's around a lot of people. She talks in them, not to them. Their ego is like a loud radio and they often don't hear her talking. In his story, The White Moth, it symbolizes the spirit of the dead and that life is a journey in illusion. At death, we realize that life was a game, that physical makes us forget this realization. The White Moth is also in a Yeats poem. The ancient Greeks equated white moths and the soul. They actually used that as a metaphor. Psyche, I don't think Psyche was a goddess. I think Psyche was like a muse or some minor mythological figure. Psyche was, well, here's what Psyche was. The anima mundi, the soul of the earth, the animating spirit of the world. Oh, okay. So actually, it was a Psyche, but I wrote it with a capital P here out of habit, but he's talking about the Psyche with a small p. In ancient Greek, the word Psyche was used both for soul and for moth, but it goes deeper. Psyche was also thought of as the anima mundi, the animating spirit of the world. After hearing his story of the moth, this philosopher wrote to him and said, Psyche signifies at the same time soul and butterfly. The myth was interpreted by playing on this double sense. It became the story of the soul touched by divine love, but which by reason of the mistakes made must undergo some tribulations before having access to happy immortality. The night butterfly, the moth, attracted by the flame like the soul attracted by heavenly truths, burns in the flame, reflection of the trials that must be endured to eliminate the fleshy sink stones before knowing the joys of the beyond. So dreams also are journeys into other worlds. I think we would all agree with that. Dreams are, the dream universe is a very strange place. He dreamed of a woman and family and meeting somebody in the future, and told him that she was moving on and that he should too. And he saw her move away and up. The last words of the book were written exactly 2 years from the minute she died. So let me find them because there was too much to write down. Oh, okay. So they're not specific words that I'm supposed to be quoting. It's the fact of the last part of the book that he completed the book exactly 2 years from the moment that she had died. And he felt that this book was a gift from her to him, but to all of us. And that's the end of this very interesting book. I think I may try to find that book, The Journey. What was it called? I think I have it downstairs. I'll have to find it. It's about out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences. I may have actually already done it. We'll see. So we have a little time. Let's read a card. Let's ask Anne. Now he says she's moved on. That doesn't mean she's inaccessible. It means that she's doing other things, and her main assignment is not to be spending all this time with him. But let's see if we can get any kind of a message about the lives of our souls disincarnate. A message from Spirit about how to prepare. That's what I'm hearing. He's really stirred up. Let's get some messages. We'll know what they're about when we see them. Oh, this is interesting. Interesting. Okay, so this is interesting because looking at it just off the top of my head, you would say this is kind of a depressing set of cards, but there's intention behind it. I think this is really, really interesting. So we get the 10 of Cups reversed and the crossed by the Ace of Cups reversed. So the 10 of Cups itself, this is about the outcome of a happy life, unified family, everything in its place, positive emotions, solidarity, love, all those sorts of things. And the Ace of Cups, it's a reversal. I think it's an intensification. I often read these as reversals of the meaning of the card, but not always. And I think what this is saying is to achieve this, it can only be done through compassion. And you see that dove, that's the Holy Spirit. That's what we're talking about here. If you remember, we talked about the triad and the fourth being the eagle, and that these animals represented, oh God, I'm not going to remember now. Well, you'll have to read the book. But there they are there. It is the world card. And this is representing, the World card. It's representing that that balance of, was it action and active passive balance, but then the animals themselves represented something. I wish I could remember. I'm so bad at remembering things like that. What's significant here is that these cards are reflecting what we read in the book, in one ear and out the other, but nevertheless they're reflecting them. And at the foundation, talking about the Wheel of Fortune, the cycles of life. So there's this necessity for compassion, for the spirit to grow, for that light to shine. And it's all about the cycles of existence, and the cycles of incarnation and reincarnation, and the evolution of the soul. This should be in our past. We should be rejecting the this would be ego. I often think of this King of Wands as the authoritative, dominating, bossy, not very emotional, tyrannical world that needs to be left behind. We don't need that. Joy is found in compassion and love. This is us. Lots of cups here in this reading. Lots and lots and lots of cups. Because why? Because we're full of emotion, and that's what our egos are all about. We need to leave these travails of life behind us and seek out reasons to recognize the good. So he talked about laughter and joy and compassion, and setting aside those emotions that drag you down, appreciating what you have, not being tied down by the trials of life and the world. We are trapped by the burdens of life. So the message is we're allowing this. Let's get the influence of the angel cards, and let's get clarification. This spells out our existence very clearly, as Whitley was told by his wife's soul. Our spirit is made of light and is enhanced by compassion and love, which really will fulfill the purpose of our existence, that love for other people. That's what brings us joy and fulfillment and grows our spirit. And we get the world and the Wheel of Fortune. It's natural cycles of existence, rejecting the authoritarian, rejecting the oppression, rejecting external control, and moving into joy and solidarity and happiness. We are weighted down by the woes of the world, the heaviness of the woes of the world. And we should instead be appreciating the good things, what we have. The children, the flowers, the happiness, right? But we can release those bonds if we do not allow ourselves to be stuck by the weight of the problems of the world. So let's do a couple of clarifiers, because, okay, so then what? That's kind of the warning about how we don't want the outcome to be. How do we want it to be? What can we do? Then what? The Page of Wands. I always think of this as taking the initiative. starting to do something. If you notice, there's an angel whispering in her ear, taking action and doing it from a sense of accomplishment and doing good for other people. Six of Pentacles. This is about philanthropy, about helping people, sharing, doing good for other people. And the Ace of Pentacles, starting projects involved in helping in a material sense. So it can be about money. It can be about power. It can be about creating things that help other people. The King of Swords. I think there's an important subtext to this. We got the reverse King of Wands, which is about authoritarian control and a lack of personal autonomy. And then we get the King of Swords with the angel above, which is about justice and fairness and intelligence and the law, using them to make life better for other people. Ending suffering, the Nine of Swords reversed. I think this is the final statement. This is a choice. This is a conscious choice that we make ourselves. We decide what direction we want to go. We decide how hard we're going to work at our purpose. Our purpose here. Interesting cards. Not entirely what I expected to get, but I guess I didn't really think much about what I was going to get. Very interesting cards. Very reflective of what the book was talking about. I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you very much for sticking with me through this book. I thought it was fascinating. Appreciate you listening. Stick around. Oh, thumbs up, subscribe, join my membership. I do personal readings. Catch me with Nate every Tuesday. We do a whole thing, and I have some stuff prepared. I may have already uploaded it, so check and see. If not, it's coming up with Deborah Lupien, and we just move forward. So, Songafoil, Slancha.